Hi guys, welcome to my Google Sheets personal finance tracker video. This is a tool that I've developed for myself. I use this every day when tracking my personal finances, both incomes and expenditures. Since I've developed this for myself, I think that it's a pretty intuitive tool to use. I didn't overburden it. I only show whatever essential information I personally need. And if you guys think that this is a tool that you want to use for yourself, there is a link in the description where you can buy this whole finished product for yourself for just $3. So that's a great way to support my channel. But if you don't want to do that and when you want to create the whole thing from scratch, wait until the second part of this video and I will show you how to do exactly that. But now let's go through all the functions that this dashboard does. First, it tracks monthly income and expenditures. As you can see, we have our different months. The bright line represents my incomes and the red line represents my expenditures. This is an easy way for me to see where I spent more than I made. The second bar chart shows income distributions. So I have as many income sources as I want. I can customize this pretty much however I want. And if I made any new incomes, it will be shown here. And then I can compare which of my income sources work best on which months. Then this heat map, it shows all of my expenditure categories and it shows which months were most dense with these categories. Meaning that, for example, let's take a look at this health. We see that 100% is at 2023 October, meaning that all of my health expenditures in this period were made only in October. So the brighter the color, the more concentrated that expenditure category is in that time frame. Now this double donut chart, first of all, it represents the expenditure parts and their percentage values of when I made these expenditures. By the way, I can select whatever periods I want. This is, as always, containing some slicers that you can use to select whatever time periods you want. As you can see, all the visualizations react accordingly. And in the center, we have the debt donut chart. It shows how much of my debt I've already paid off and how much is left. If you don't need this visualization, you can just hide it or delete it, whatever. This one in the middle shows my current balance. So it simply sums up all of my incomes and expenditures. And this horizontal bar plot shows my recurring monthly payments. So whatever subscriptions or taxes that I pay each month I can see them here. And I can see that my total monthly payments are 150 euro. So that's pretty much the gist of it, of what this dashboard represents. Now we can run through the data. It looks something like this. So as you can see, there is a bunch of different categories, a lot of different colors. All of this is customizable. I think that it's an extremely intuitive tool to use. And if I wanted to create any new lines, I would simply add them like this. And I would simply, for example, let's say I had another lunch. I just change the date to whatever date today is. And it will automatically update. One cool thing about Google Sheets is that you don't have to refresh your pivot tables. Every visualization updates automatically. And another thing that I really like is that if I want to filter a specific category, for example, I can do that really easily. For example, I want to see all the transactions I made that are related to my car. I simply click OK, and I can see everything that I've ever done to my car. If we want something to do with all of my, let's say I only want to see everything that is related to my income. So I select all here. Here I select income, and these are all the incomes I made in my period. So the sky is your limit with this one. And yeah, and I can create as many different categories as I want in this mapping sheet. So, but more on that when we create our sheet. If you do decide to purchase this dashboard, it will come with an additional set of sheets. First of all is the disclaimer. You'll have to read through this one, and then you have the instructions. I've tried to put in as much information and as densely as I could here. So hopefully all of your questions regarding maintaining this dashboard are answered here. And if not, you can always contact me via my email. All right, so without further ado, we can continue with actually creating this whole thing from scratch. And as always, we begin with a blank spreadsheet. Well, it's almost blank because I've copied whatever categories I'm going to be using. So we made two sheets here. Let's go over the categories first. So in this sheet, we can write down whatever expenditure or income category that we want. It can be whatever we want. It can be as many or as few as we want. I've only written down the ones that I'm personally using, but if you're creating this with me, you can add whatever new categories you want. Just don't forget, once you write down a category here, you also have to write down a type, whether it's an expenditure or income. Never mind the starting balance. This is a separate, unique category. You don't need to change anything here. Simply leave it as it is. So it's either an income or an expenditure, and then you just write down what category it is. Then we create a new sheet called data. Let me just zoom in a little bit so we can see more clearly what we have here. So we'll be working with these columns here, which is date, year, month, and year, month. I'll go through each of them. Category, type, amount, normalized, recurring, and description. We'll go through them one by one. First, let me skip one row here, or maybe not. Let's not skip it for now. So date is obvious. Whenever we make a new income or expenditure, we simply write down a date, for example, 2020-12-15. Sorry for the mistake. Year is a custom formula, which takes the year of A2. Month is a formula that takes the month of A2. Simple for now. YM is simply a year plus month, so it will be 2020.12. For me, this is an extremely simple way in Google Sheets to represent different months when we have several years. So let me just copy and paste the formula for this one. Yes, so this is how it will be shown in year month. I won't go through how this formula works. It's pretty simple. If you want, you can just copy and paste it from here. Then we have the category. So for this one, we'll be using the drop down. We right click on the category, we click drop down, then we select drop down from a range. We select our range, which if we go back to our category sheet, we select the whole column A. We click OK. And now whenever we have a new category, we can simply select it from this selection here. And if we add anything new, it will already be in this drop-down list. We can customize the colors of all of these selections in this right side right here. So you can customize or change the colors of however you see fit. So I'll change that later in this video. Type is a custom formula which simply looks up. Let me first explain what it does. It looks up for this category here, and it simply maps what type it is. So I'll just copy and paste the lookup formula. Like this. The amount will be the numerical representation of how much money we spent or made. If it's an expenditure, we write it with a minus sign. So for example, formula looks like this. Made a tax payment recurring of, I don't know, 50. If we want to change the format for it to be represented as money, we click on it, we click on format, and then in number format, we select currency. And if we want dollars, we simply click currency. If we want custom currency, we click here, and then we select euro and apply. Normalized is once again a custom formula that takes the positive value of whatever amount we have here. So let me just copy and paste the formula. formula looks like this. Recurring is either true or blank. If it's a recurring payment, for example, a monthly subscription, we simply write down true. If no, then not. So if this was, for example, a monthly donation that I make every month, I would write down true. If no, then I leave it blank. Description is a more precise description of what that payment was about. For example, if taxes, I can, for example, say mobile phone tax. Right, and this is how our whole data sets will be populated. One caveat is that at the very bottom of our list, for example, if we only had one entry here, we would add an additional row. As you can see in our original data set, that row is a dummy row. We simply write down dummy. This is something that we want so that we know where the end of our table is. And one more thing is that we create a row above with the value of start, and it will also be starting balance. Whatever money we have remaining, so that we know that whatever value is represented here in the current balance, so that we make sure that it's correct, we write down whatever difference we have in our calculations. So we'll go that whenever we will need it. So this is how our table will look like. We select our top row. We click on this filter icon right here, create a filter, so that it understands that this whole thing right here is a table. Whenever we want to create new entries, we insert new rows above the dummy, right? So that we know the dummy is the last row of our table, like this. And as you can see, it is already inside the table. And what also we can do is select the table, click anywhere on it, and then we click alternating colors. We select whatever colors we want. For example, let's go with the yellowish. And it will look something like this. Now, let me make a quick jump. I will populate this table with whatever information I have, and we'll come back to you after that. So this is how our whole populated data set looks like. I filled it up with semi-randomized information. Most of these categories are something that I use, but these values are not something that I would use. I don't want to compromise myself. So there's a couple of additional things that we need to create here before we can actually create our dashboard. So first, in column L1, we write down sum of amount of the G column. So we have the exact sum of whatever amount of money we have. So this is our total balance. We copy and paste the format. And also, if you have any debts, then you can also create a debt calculator like this: paid and debt. So in this column right here, we write down whatever amount of money we owe, our debt. Once again, we can copy and paste our format from this cell to this cell like this. Then paid is going to be a custom formula, which simply looks for the F column, which is type, and it looks if anything here is debt. Or not the F column, but the E column. It looks for the category, sums up anything that is debt. So 2,000 is our total debt that we've already paid. And this one will simply deduct whatever we paid from what we still owe. So this will be the amount that we still owe. We copy the format and we're done. With this, we're ready to go and create our whole dashboard from scratch. To do that, first I open up a fresh Excel desktop version, and here I created 6 boxes with their unique color codes. You can use these color codes if you want to have the same color palette for your dashboard. These are the ones that work for me. And here you can see their hex codes. So you can just copy and paste them. You can insert such boxes and then simply copy and paste their hex codes. I can briefly show you how it's done. So we simply go to insert, then shapes, a box. Then in shape format, we click shape fill, and then more fill colors. And here we write down the hexadecimal code. And if you create 6 such boxes with these codes, you'll get these colors. We need this because Google Sheets has a very unintuitive way of creating colors and shapes. So in my personal opinion, this is the easiest way to do that. And I'll illustrate to you how it's done. So first we create a new sheet where our dashboard will be created. We rename it dashboard. Now we go view, show, and we disable grid lines. We don't want those. Now we click Ctrl plus A to select the whole sheet, and then we go to colors, fill color, and then we click this pick a custom color function. This represents a pixel by pixel color picker, and it works not only for the Google Sheet, it works for your whole screen. So you can even select something that is outside of your Google Sheet, for example, our Excel sheet, and we can click on any color that we want. Just like that, we already have our color. So I'm using this third darkest color for our background. Let me check if that's correct. Yes, that is. Great. And now we can start producing our charts. And we'll begin with this monthly income versus expenditure chart. So first things first, we have to go back to data. We click anywhere on our table. We click insert, pivot table. We go to existing sheet. We select our dashboard sheet. And we go to the rightmost cell, Z in our case. We click OK and then create. For the whole functionality of our dashboard to be able to refresh automatically, we have to have our pivot tables in the same sheet. So this is why we have all of our visualizations here, and everything that is under the hood, all the backend, all the pivot tables have to be to the right. So we can hide them later, or we can just never scroll to the right, right? So once we click on our pivot table, let me just zoom in a little bit as always. Zoom to 125, yeah. We can click anywhere on our pivot table, we click edit, and then let's think what we need. So we're working with dates, so this is why we have our year.month format. We go rows, we disable totals. Then another thing that we have to do is that there's some blank values. Remember, if we go back to our data, for example, the one that is starting balance has no date. So we don't want that. So we drag our year month to filters and we disable blanks. And now there's no blanks here. As for our values, we're going to want the normalized, because if we select amount, it will show the minus sign for all the expenditures, and this will just not work for our visualization. This is why we have our normalized. Next thing, we want to display sum. And now we want to separate our incomes from our expenditures. So the type here goes into columns. We have our expenditures, incomes, and we will disable the grand total. Great. Now we click anywhere on our pivot table. We click insert and then chart. We want this to be a line chart, so we double click on it. On the chart type menu, we select line chart. Perfect. Let's go scroll to the left, place it somewhere here for now. We will adjust the size and position later. Now what we want to do is to play around with this chart. For that, we pull up our trusty Excel color book. Here, we double click on our chart. On the customize ribbon, we select chart style, and our background color will be a custom color once more. So we select this dark purple color. right? Now, for our font, we're going to be using Verdana. Our chart border color will be this light pinkish kind of color. Next, we will be going into chart axis. For our title, we're going to be using monthly income versus expenditure. Monthly income versus expenditure. Great. Now for text color, we're going to be using this sandy color once again. As you can see, once we've selected a color once, it already appears in our whole automatic custom color ribbon, so it's easy to use. Now, let's see what we also want to do. We want to delete the legend. We simply click delete. Then, let's remember, we want to hide this y-axis. And one thing that is annoying with Google Sheets is that you cannot simply delete it. If I try to delete it, it says item cannot be deleted. But we can work around this. Once I click on this y-axis, I click on the font size. I click 0. It will be minimal. The smallest font size you can have in Google Sheets is 6. Now, we simply adjust the text color to be the same as the background, and it becomes invisible. That's a intuitive workaround for this situation. Next, we select the dates, we select the color. Nice. This YM has to go. We delete that. All right, let's see what we also have to do. So we go back to chart style, we click maximize so that it fills up the whole screen. Then I don't want these grid lines. I click on them. I disable major grid lines. Now I want to change the colors of my lines. So I click on one of the lines. Since the red one represents my incomes, yes, I want this to be light. So I'll have this sandy color once again. And for the expenditures, I want a light shade of red so that I know it's expenditure. Yes, I think this looks pretty nice. I want it to be slightly more squished, like this. And I think this almost works. There's just a couple of things I have to change. First, I want to add, I click on my lines, I click data labels. I want to show those. I click on both of my lines. Now, one thing I want to change is I don't want to have the decimal points for my values. So I go back to my pivot table. I select my pivot table, and here I simply click decrease decimal places so that I don't show these cents. Now, as we can see, the y-axis isn't quite correct because we cannot see this top value. It doesn't fit. So to do that, we click on vertical axis, and we have to manually adjust the minimum and maximum values. So we would want to increase the maximum value so that it actually fits in the biggest value we have here. So let's try 5,000 for now. Doesn't change anything. Let's try 6,000. Yes, this looks much better. What if we did 5,500? Didn't really change anything. So I think this works pretty decent. And let's see if there's anything else that we want to change here. Yes, we want to change the format of these values so that are displayed with K, 3.1K, 2.6K, so it isn't as clustered as it is right now. To do that, we go back to our pivot table, we select our values, we click Format, Number, Custom Number Format. We paste this format right here, we click Apply, and now it shows with the decimal K point. I think this visualization is done. Let me just take a look. Yes. Now let's go and do our income distribution bar chart. To do that, we go back to our pivot tables. We copy our pivot table. We paste it, make a copy of it. Once we click edit, we remove all the boxes that we don't need. We only need the year and month. I'll also need to disable the blanks, just like we did before. Now, what we want to display is how all of our expenditures, I mean my incomes, are distributed across our months. So we go to normalized, we go to values once again. This time, let's revert to our original currency format, which was simply the euros. Now we want to disable the cents. We want to push back the decimal places. We need another filter, which is type. Here we select only our incomes. And now we want to split all the categories into columns. We want to disable the grand totals. And just like that, we have our data set. There's a couple of things we need to tweak. First of all, we can see that project is still displayed with the point K format. So we will select the whole thing. We'll go to format, we'll go to number, custom currency, euro, and push down the decimal points. Now we want salary to be displayed at the very left. So we go to category, descending by sum of normalized grand total. Great. Now we can actually create our bar plot. We click insert, chart, and it already knows that I want to have the stacked column chart. So if it doesn't show up like this for you, just know that this is the format that we're going to be using. Once again, we push it back to where it belongs, to the left here. And now what's left to do is to play around with colors and formats once again. Once again, we pull up our Excel desktop color palette. We'll be using most of these colors right now. We double click on our chart. Once again, we go for Verdana font. Background color, we already have this in our selection. We select this one. Border color, once again, the sandy one. Yes, we're done with chart style for chart and axis titles. Once again, text color will be this sandy one. Now the name of this chart is income distribution. So let's write that down. Right. I don't want to see the y-axis once again, so we'll do the same thing like before. We write down 0, and we make the color the same as the background. It's invisible, essentially. We delete the year and month. We change the color of our horizontal axis labels. We disable the grid lines. We click on the grid lines, and we click disable major grid lines. Great. Now for our legend, we want to change the color of its text, and we want it to be positioned at the bottom, I think. Yes, this looks better. Now what's left to do is to play around with the colors of our bars. So we click on one of the colors, and then we click fill color, and we select whatever color we want from our palette. So for example, in the beginning, we can use the one that we already have. For our next category, we can use something lighter. For example, this one, the pinkish color. Then once again, we have to use the dark one. Let's use, for example, the black one, right? And then we can also use whatever we are left with. This one right here. We haven't used this one before. Now, we want to make sure that our bars, all of the bars, have apply to all series, have their line colors. Line colors would be our default light one. Let's see if it looks similar. It does. All that's left to do is for us to add the data labels. So we go back to our series, we click data labels, and we simply need to adjust their positions, right? Position will be center. Nice. I think it looks pretty close to what we had before. It's only a matter of playing around with the font sizes and the colors if you don't like how it looks, but I think it looks maybe even better than the original actually. So I'll think about changing that as well. All right, moving on to our next visualizations, which are our double donut charts. We go back to our pivot tables, we copy and paste one of them, we edit, and we delete everything that we don't need. For now, let's just keep the type because we simply want to change it from income to expenditure. Our donut charts will display all the expenditures. Then for our values, once again, we're using normalize because we're dealing with negative values here. And for our rows, we're going to be using categories. We disable grand totals as always. For our values, we are using sums. And we want our categories to be sorted by the sum of normalized in descending order. Good. Now, once again, we apply our decimal point rule here, and we have all of our categories. Now, since if we are going to be using all of them, our donut chart will be over clustered. This is why I want to only have 10 categories. So we'll have 9 of these, and the remaining categories will be summed up into a single others category. Let me show you how it's done. So first we go to a neighboring cell, we write down equals to whatever the first category is, we drag it down and we drag it to the right. Here we count down our 10 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This one, starting from this one and everything below it will be a single category. So we rename it to others. We delete all of these names. And for this one, we simply write down equals sum of everything that is here and below. We'll just make it more space for maybe, for example, if we have more categories in the future. And then we delete whatever is below that. Now, we select this handmade table. We click Insert, Chart, and for our chart type, we select the donut type. Once again, we go back to where it belongs. Once again, as I said, we will play around with the positions and colors later on. Right now, it's only a matter of actually placing our visualizations. All right, so this one will require quite a bit of customization. We go to Customize, Chart Style. For our background color, once again, we're using the darkest one. Now let's see how the original looks, just to remind myself how everything should be changed. So as I can see, the border color is also the light one as before. Next, if we maximize it, no, it doesn't really work like that. Theme, we change to Verdana. Pie chart, donut hole is going to be the biggest one, 75%, so that we have space for another donut inside. Border color, our light one, or is it black? Yes, it's light. Good. Slice label. Now for the slice label, we wanted to actually display the values as we see here. So we go value. For our label font size, we want to decrease it so that every label is fit inside its category. If it doesn't fit, we can drag down the size of our visualization so that it actually fits. The text color will have to adjust manually because some of them are dark and they will need a light text color and vice versa. The light ones will need a dark color. So let me show you what I mean. Let's click on our first biggest category, which is home. We want it to be dark. As you can see, the black color doesn't really work here because we can barely see it, right? So we click on our value and our text color will be light. And just like this, one by one, we change our category colors and their font size, font colors. until they look the way we want them to look. So I usually do 4 colors, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I just keep repeating them so that it's not too many colors and it's not as visually provoking. So I'll speed this part up. Now we go to our legend, and once again we adjust the color. What's missing here is the actual name of this visualization, so we will have to click on chart and access title text. It's called expenditure category distribution, so let's write that down. And once again, we'll have to adjust the sizes so that we can see all of the numbers. Great. We don't forget to change the color of our name. And our external donut chart is done. Now what we want to do is add another chart aside, as we can see here, that displays our debt, the amount of debt that we've already paid off and the one that is still remaining. So this is actually pretty easy to do. We're just going to create another donut and we'll put it on top of this one. Let me show you. So we simply click Insert, Chart. We insert another donut. And this time we will have to manually adjust the data range. We click on this button here. We delete what is written here. We go back to our data. We have our debt information here because, as you can remember, the paid amount of debt is always refreshed automatically based on how much debt you've had put in over here. So we simply select this whole range, we click OK, and we have our donut. Now what's left to do is to do the exact same thing we did with the bigger one, just on a smaller scale. So we go back to Customize. For the background color, we want it to be none because we want it to be transparent, and we wanted to have no border color. Theme, as always, is Verdana. Pie chart, donut hole is going to be once again 75%. We decrease its size so that it fits inside. Or no, we can actually make the donut hole slightly bigger because there is enough space to accommodate this thing. Now for the legend, we actually want none. We don't want any legends here. We can further increase the size and maybe even some more. Yes, and put it exactly at the center. Now we simply change the colors so that they represent whatever we understand as the amount paid and not paid. So for me, this will be paid will be this light one, and something that is not paid will be the light red one. We also want to have the border color here. We want it to be black. I think it looks pretty decent. Now the only thing that is remaining is for us to have the values. Slice label is actually value, and it doesn't fit inside the donut, so thus it doesn't really show. But if we decrease the size, for example, to 10, now it shows. The problem here is that we have decimal points. This is why it doesn't really fit. So if we go back to data and we select our values here, we push back the decimal places, we can now increase the size of these values. So for example, 12 or maybe even 14. Yeah, close enough. Now the only thing that's remaining is to actually say that this is debt. So we'll add the text here at the very end. But for now, our double donut chart, I think it's pretty much complete. Moving on to our current balance box. This one's actually really easy to do. We simply, once again, go to Insert, Chart, then we select our scorecard chart. Now for our data, we delete what is here, we go back to data, and this L1, as we can remember, it sums up all of our expenditures and income. So this shows our balance. We'll click on this one, okay. We push down the size so that it actually fits inside the box. And now it's just, as always, just a matter of picking the correct fonts and sizes. So our background color is the dark one, our border is light, our key value color is once again light. Let's fit it inside the whole box. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Once again, we will just need to add the name, which is current balance, but we'll do that at the very end. Moving on to our vertical bar chart showing our recurring monthly payments. You know the gist of it. We go back to our pivot tables, we copy and paste our latest pivot table, we click edit, we remove everything that we don't need. Let's start for this one from the very beginning. So let's think about it for a second. We want only the recurring payments. If we go back to data, we know that a payment is recurring if our column recurring has a value true. So we're going to be using a filter for the recurring box. We select true. Now we go to categories for our rows. We disable our grand totals. Or maybe not even the categories, but we want the descriptions because those are much more precise. Yeah, exactly. Now we want their normalized values. We want them to be shown as sums, and we want them to be shown as this on the descending sum order. Now, one thing that has to change, because it's a monthly payment, we want to know not the amount that we spent in total, but how much we spent each month. So instead of sum, we select average. And we're pretty much ready to create the visualization. We just simply click Insert, Chart, and we select our bar chart, the horizontal one. We drag it to the left, put it somewhere here, and we drag it around so that it fits the whole gap. And then we just customize. As always, we go to chart style, background color, we already know, the darkest one, font, Verdana, chart border color, the lightest one. Now, we want to change the color of our y-axis labels, like this. We want this description to go away. We also want this average of normalized to go away. We also don't want the horizontal axis because this will be shown on the bars themselves. So we cannot delete that, as we've already established. So you know how to do this. We simply click label font size, we write down 0, and then we change the color to be the same as the background. We simply change it to be invisible. Now we don't want these grid lines. We click on them, we click disable. We click on our bars and we select the color that we want for our bars. Let's try this color. I think it works decently enough. Let's see how it was on our previous one. Yeah, maybe the darker one works better here. Let's try the darker one. And we want it to have a line color. Great. What we also need are data labels, which are shown here. Since some of these payments are really small, I also want to have the decimal points for them. So we go back to our pivot table, we select our whole column, and we push back the decimal point to actually show how much in total we spent there. Nice. Next thing, I want to change the color of these data labels to always be light. And maybe we can actually even increase the size of them to 14. Yeah, I think that works pretty well. We want to change the name of our chart, which is recurring monthly payments. So we double click on it. Recurring monthly payments. And once again, we change the color to be light. What we also had in our original data frame is that we have our total monthly payments summed up. So this is not a part of our bar chart. It's simply another visualization, the one that we had here. So we go back to our pivot tables, to our latest one. Nearby, on the cell nearby, we write down sum. So we sum up the whole column, and we know the total amount we spend each month, which is 150 euro. We can simply copy and paste the visualization we already created, which is this one. We copy and paste it. Sorry about that. Double click on it, and we simply change the source of this range. So we go back to our pivot tables. We click on our newly created value. We click OK. And I also want this to be shown as euro because right now it simply shows a number. So we click on whatever value that we like. We click on paint format and we click on top of it. Great. Now I want to decrease the size of this whole thing so that it fits into this visualization. Maybe we can decrease it just a little bit. And now I want to delete the background color, so there is no background here because it's already inside the visualization. So none, and for our border also none. The only thing that is remaining, once again, is just some text boxes. For example, this one, total monthly payments, but we'll create those at the very big end. All right, now we're going to go for our most difficult visualization, which is this heat map. Okay, as always, we go back to our pivot tables. We copy and paste the latest one. For this one, we have to make sure that our pivot table for our heat map will be the utmost rightest pivot table, because there's some logic here that we'll need to discuss. But if you will want to add any more visualizations into our dashboard, you can do that, but always remember to add them before this one. This has to be the final pivot table. So let's delete everything and think about what we need right now. So we only need expenditures. So first thing, we have to have a filter that shows our expenditures. Good. Now, we want all the categories to be shown on the rows. We want to disable the grand totals. Sorry about that. For year and month, we go to columns. We also disable those. And now we need their values. So we go to normalized values, and we want them to be sums. Good. Now we have our pivot table, and what we need to do is we want to come back to the very beginning of our data frame. So for the very corner of our pivot table, we simply click on our cell, we write down equals, and we click on whatever value we have over here, which is category. Now we simply drag it to the right for as many cells as we have for all of our year and month combinations, and we drag it down for all of our category combinations. Not sure how many of those we have. We have up until travel. So this shows me that we have to push all of our visualizations down a bit so that we can accommodate this one. And maybe we have to also adjust the size of this one and this one. As you can see, this isn't really a visualization. It's just a colored table on our cells. So now what we want to do is to select this whole box. Then we want to color it in our visualization color. And we also want to make sure that our borders are light, just like for all of our visualizations. Great. Now we want to change the font size, color, and theme of all of our values here. So we select the whole heat map. We select Verdana, and we change the color to be this one. I want to also make it bold, and I want to drag this to accommodate all of our categories. Now for the actual values, we're going to be using custom formulas. Now let me briefly explain to you what these formulas do. If we go back to our pivot table and we take a car category for our example, we know that the total sum of our car expenditure is the sum of all of these values, which in our case is 833. We want this heat map to show the percentage value of how much this particular month was in comparison to all of our months. So how much is €8 in comparison to €800? So this should be somewhere around 1%. So we will have to write down a custom formula. We write down BF3. In our case, this isn't BF3. This is actually AV3. We divided by the sum of starting from AV3 up until wherever. We want to accommodate some more months if we have more information in the future, so we can make the range up until here, for example, which is BI3, right? So from starting from AV3 ending with BI3. This formula right here, we can drag it to the bottom and drag it to the right. And now what we have to do is to select all of them, go to format, number, want to be percentage. Now we want to push down the decimal places. We want this to be centralized. Thus we can decrease the sizes of these columns. Now we select all of them. We go to format, conditional formatting, and we click on color scale. Now we have to create our custom color scale. So in our case, the smallest value will be this light color, or maybe slightly darker. And our biggest value will be the dark color, like this. Close enough. Now, what I also want to do is I want to change the colors of these values, not the cells, but the actual values, so that they are black. Now I will adjust the maximum value color point to be slightly lighter so that the black values can be seen. Now that we have our heat map, whenever we have more categories or if we have more months, it's only a matter of dragging it to the right. So if we had another month, it will automatically update because this formula takes this locked value of whatever month it is, and it drags it to the right or to the bottom. So it will work automatically. If we have fewer months, for example, let me show you. If I delete the whole entirety of our 9-month, and this is empty. So we can simply copy this empty cell, paste it over, and it's decreased. And if we go back, it'll automatically adjust. So this is the logic that I use for my heat maps. All right, now the final thing that's left to do is to create our text boxes and our visualization will be done. So we go back to our desktop Excel. Let's increase the size for now. We insert another shape, which is a text box. We disable the fill. We disable all the outlines. We write down whatever we want. For now, let's write current balance. Make sure that the same font style is applied. Then we make sure that the same color is applied as well. We cannot see it right now, so let's move it to a darker place. Now we adjust the size of the box and we increase the font size to, let's say, 20 for now. 200, I wanted 20. Drag down the box. We simply copy the box and paste it on top. Just like that, we can create all the needed text boxes. And we create them one by one, and then we end up with our final product. Oh, and I almost forgot that we also have to create the slicers or the filters for our visualizations, because that's extremely easy to do. We just click on any one of our pivot tables. We click Insert, or no, we click Data. We click Add a Slicer. And for example, we go for the month. And if we disable some of them, as we can see, all of our visualizations react accordingly. So if we only have months 10, 11, and 12, we can see that the visualization here shows that. Here we only can see these values as well. And the only visualizations that aren't being affected are these two, because as we can remember, they take their data from here, from the data source, not from our pivot tables. So yeah, we can have as many slicers as we want. They can represent not only month, we can have them to represent, for example, if we create a slicer by categories, by whatever. And we can change their colors by clicking customize and their background color to be matched to whatever we want. I think that's a pretty simple concept, and it works for all of our visualizations at the same time. So this is pretty much it for the whole tutorial. I hope this was clear and concise. If you don't feel that you have the time to create this from scratch, once again, you can buy my product from Etsy. Link in the description. If not, I still thank you for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, and I see you guys on the next one.